Okay, let's kick off, shall we? So, for those of you who are new to the Digital Poverty Alliance, we're a non-profit committed to eliminating digital poverty across the UK. Our mission is to bring together businesses, government, and individuals to ensure everyone has equal access to digital resources in an online world. Our mission transcends technology. It's about unlocking human potential and fostering inclusivity. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Lou from Good Things Foundation, and if you'd just like to tell us a little bit more about you and what Good Things Foundation do, and then pass over to Hayley.
Hi, I'm Louise from Good Things Foundation. I'll talk a little bit more about Good Things Foundation and what we do in a moment, but I'll pass over to Hayley to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Hayley. I'm from Live Life Enterprise in Sheffield.
We would love to know if there are any other members of the National Digital Inclusion Network here in the audience today, so do let us know in the chat panel as we get started. So we are here today to talk about community-led digital inclusion support, and I'll just give you an idea of what we're going to cover. So first of all, we'll talk about who we are and what we do, and we will then talk about what we mean by community-led digital inclusion support and why it is so important. And then moving on, we'll talk about the context for the community organisations that provide this support. And finally, we'll talk about the National Digital Inclusion Network, what it is and how we support organisations that provide this support. I'll just check the chat panel now, see what people are saying, but nice to see people introducing yourselves. And we've got a from our network, great to see the High Portsmouth, hi. So first of all, we'll talk about Good Things Foundation. So I am Community Engagement Manager at Good Things Foundation, and we're the UK's leading digital inclusion charity, and our vision is to fix the digital divide for good. I help people to become digitally able, equal and safe so that they can be happier, healthier and better off. And what we mean by this is that digital isn't just for digital's sake, it's helping people to access the digital and learn digital skills so that they can access essential services and better life opportunities. And absolutely central to everything that we do are the organisations in the National Digital Inclusion Network. They are the organisations that deliver frontline support for people who need it. And they are how we're able to achieve impact in this area. There are three main areas to our support, and we tackle three areas of digital exclusion, which is helping people to learn digital skills, access to connectivity and access to devices. One of the main ways we support people to learn digital skills is not only through the support that organisations in our network provide, but also through our free learning platform, Learn My Way, that some of you might be familiar with already. This is a brilliant platform. It's completely free for people to use, and it helps people to learn the basics of digital, from using a mouse or a keyboard through to more practical skills, like using online public services or managing your money online. We recently in 2023, so that it now has more bite-sized topics so that people can personalise their learning journey, and they can better meet their needs. We've also just relaunched the text-to-speech function, so it's a really great accessible platform for people to use. So Data Bank, which we launched almost 2 years ago now, in partnership with Virgin Media O2. Through this programme, telecoms companies provide free mobile data. They donate that to the data bank. We distribute it to members of our network, who then get it to the people who need it, people who can't afford connectivity. And finally, we have National Device Bank, which is the newest part of our service. This is all about getting donations of used devices from a range of different types of organisations, from big corporate businesses to public sector organisations and local authorities who donate their used phones, tablets and laptops. They are then published by our partners at Economy and distributed again through the organisations in our network to people who need it. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without the support of our strategic partners, so Virgin Media O2, Vodafone and Nominet. That's our website, and you can follow us on Twitter, Things Foundation. And I'll hand over to Hayley.
Yeah, so we are, I'm Live Life Enterprise, I'm one of the directors, and we're a community learning centre based in Sheffield. We've been a digital inclusion hub for 13 years now, so we've been working with Good Things Foundation for quite a long time. We are sort of using Learn My Way on a sort of regular basis. We deliver digital inclusion classes in local libraries and in local tenants and residents association groups, as well as at our centre. So we're looking at a spectrum of sort of refugees and asylum seekers who come to us to learn English, but also old people in the community and members of the general public that need help with IT. We're also a national data bank, so we distribute data to people, and we do this on a daily basis. But then this morning there was a queue of people waiting for SIM cards, as there are most mornings, and this is mainly because we get a lot of new arrivals in Sheffield that have come very recently from different parts of the world, and they've arrived with nothing and they don't have any data. So to be able to give them data is amazing. So we're very busy. We do a lot of voluntary classes as well as some funded provision, but a lot of the classes we do here are run by volunteers, and we embed digital inclusion into a lot of our English classes and into our maths classes as well. And this is a really good way of getting people familiar with digital, especially for people who may not have had a computer before or have no idea how to use one. We also help to facilitate sort of our students becoming digital champions. So what we do is we train up volunteers at our centre and in local libraries to actually help people with digital skills, because you will find that, I'm sure a lot of you know anyway, that a lot of people maybe who don't have English as a first language, that's just their barrier really. They've got a hell of a lot of intelligence and skills behind that. So they are ideal to sort of meet people and help people with complicated things. And such as this morning, I couldn't get a screen to turn on, which was not good. However, I said to one of our volunteers, I can't get a screen to turn on. He went upstairs, he sorted it out for me. So it's what happens. So you can look at our website as well. And we've got a link to our Instagram, Facebook and Twitter if you want to keep in touch.
Thanks, Hayley. So we wanted to give you paint the picture a little bit about the context of digital exclusion and the need for community support in 2023. We were really pleased at Good Things Foundation to contribute to the House of Lords report into digital exclusion that was released in June, that really highlighted the need for government prioritisation of digital exclusion, and also highlighted the fact that we haven't had a strategy for digital exclusion in the UK for a very long time, and that it's now time to refocus on this. And there is a bit of a perception that since the pandemic, everyone's online, but that simply isn't true. Many people started to use the internet for the first time during the pandemic, but because more and more services have moved online and there is an assumption that it's digital first, this is really furthering the digital divide for many people. And there are many people that still don't have access to the internet at all, or who don't have enough access to the internet. We've pulled some numbers here from our recent impact report that was with the Good Things Foundation released in August, just to highlight this in the areas of skills, connectivity and devices. So 1 in 20 UK households still have no home internet at all. And there are a further 8 million households that have difficulty affording communication services. In terms of skills, there are 5.8 million people who will remain digitally excluded without any action to improve their digital skills by the end of 2032. And there are 5% of the UK population that have no accesses to a device at home that enable them to access the internet. So there are still lots of people in the internet that either don't have access to the internet or don't have enough access. And I think this really helps to demonstrate that it's not just a simple case of being online or offline anymore. There's kind of a different spectrum of different people on a range of levels of digital exclusion. Another thing that we were really pleased to see highlighted in the report was the importance and need for community-based support. And we've just picked this quote from the report that says local interventions and more informal engagements delivered community provide a key way of excluded individuals and building the motivation, confidence and skills needed to get online. So this was a focus and a policy recommendation from the report. The government have to respond to the report in the autumn, so we are really trying to encourage people to highlight the need and the of community-based support to their local MPs. We've got a template letter if you would like to write to your MP that you can use. Just get in touch and we'll share that with you very gladly. But we're going to talk more to that. What do we mean by community-led digital inclusion support? And what does so there are all different types of organisations in our network that provide digital inclusion support. We have hundreds and hundreds of libraries. There are community centres. There are more formal courses. There are drop-ins. There are outreach services that go into cafes, pubs, and even barns, as we saw with Links Digital recently. There are people offering digital inclusion support through a van that travels around rural areas. And it can be one-to-one, it can be in a group setting, it can take all different types of delivery models, or all different types of organisations that provide it. But we've kind of picked out some of the 4 features that we think are common in many of these types of organisations that provide digital inclusion support. First of all, really importantly, it is local. Community-led digital inclusion support happens in places and spaces that are familiar. They're accessible to the people that need to access it, whether that's in terms of transport, whether that's in terms of having a ramp access, parking. And they are also really friendly spaces where people know they'll receive a warm welcome, and they might even see familiar faces from their community. It's also holistic, so organisations in our network provide all other types of support. There might be organisations with a focus on supporting older people, providing other types of support for older people, and digital is one aspect of that support. Might be like Hayley, an organisation that has a focus on supporting people to learn English. They might support people with learning disabilities, or it might be a mental health charity. Digital is part of that support. It might be a standalone feature, it might be embedded into other things that they do, for example, digital as part of an arts and crafts class. This support is also very person-centred. It is based on a person's needs and interests. It might be a really immediate need, like filling in an online form. For example, blue badge applications have now moved online in many areas, meaning that people might come in in a moment of crisis, needing to fill a form online and needing support from a hub to be able to do that. It's also in many cases informal. And what we mean by that is not focused on getting a formal qualification. It's more about helping people to learn the basic digital skills that they need to be able to do the things that they need to do. And importantly, that this support can be focused on learning digital skills. It could be about accessing connectivity, for example, through the data bank, or having access to devices through a loan scheme or through the device bank. And Hayley, what does community-led digital inclusion support like?
Yeah, so at Learn for Life, we make it local. It is the familiar, it is the accessible. We've got people now that sort of come, I think, mainly for the social aspect as well as the digital things. So in some of our libraries, we've got people that come every week because they're going to meet the volunteers that they've met the previous week. They've built up friendship. What's lovely as well is the fact that some of the people that are coming to the libraries are actually sort of bringing like cakes and biscuits for our volunteers and sort of making stuff for them and sort of looking after them as well as them looking after them, which is lovely. But we find that with all learning and all education, it's got to be holistic. We previously did things like beginners IT courses where you had a very set curriculum where maybe they did spreadsheets one week, they did Microsoft Word, they did learning how to use a mouse, all of that. But people can drop out when that happens because maybe they don't want to know how to do that. They want to know how to talk to their grandchild who's based in Cornwall and they're in Sheffield. How are they going to do that? So actually getting people to sort of engage with digital with something that's useful for them is very important. We've got one Tara group, and one of the older people there, they wanted to know how they could see sort of directions to where their son was. So we actually showed them how to use Google Maps, and then they realized that using Google Maps, you can actually go onto the street, you can look on the street, you can then see in different directions where they're going to go. And that's really, really helpful. So that sort of brought them in. We've also found that using tablets is really, really useful for people, because once they realise that a tablet's got a camera on it, they can actually have fun taking pictures of people in the class, each other, you know, just sort of have a bit of fun really, and realising that digital's not that scary, and knowing that they're not going to break it as soon as they touch it. For qualifications and things, that isn't a main focus for a lot of people. It is that sorting out that issue that they want to do. They want to sort out the thing that they want to do, not get a formal qualification. So making sure that your support is familiar, you know, it's person-centered, it is for them, is really important. Shall we move on to the next slide, Louise? Yeah. So you're going to come back in?
I was just going to introduce it, but this is over to you. So we just wanted to highlight some of the reasons we think community-led support is so important, and I'll let Hayley take it over.
Yeah. So it's really important because community organisations can reach people who aren't online. You've got people coming into your centres, into your organisations, that maybe they're coming to use the food bank, maybe they're coming to ask a query, maybe they want help filling in a form, maybe they're coming to a sewing group or an exercise class. You know, these people that are just sort of functioning in everyday life, and that's why community is really important. But what is also important is trust, and you will know as well that a lot of people who aren't digitally included do have a fear of technology, and they have a fear of the internet, and they're very worried that they're going to get scammed, and they don't fully understand sort of online safety. So if they've got somebody that they can trust who's taking them through it, they say, okay, you know, I know Barbara's all right, she's sort of helped me do that the other day, so I will sort of listen to what she's got to say. And that sort of helps, and that's why I think sort of building up relationships with volunteers, digital champions, is really, really important, because that way you can actually get things across to people and make them feel safe and confident when they're online. And as we sort of said, people will often start their journey with you by seeking support with another issue. So it could be they've come in and they've got a bill to pay, and it says you must go online to find out more, or you've got to register with this to do this, and they'll sort of come to you going, I need help with that. And then as you're helping them, you can show them how to do it, but you can also make it safe for them. You can show them that it's okay, they can do it, they're not going to break it, it's straightforward. If it's not straightforward, that doesn't matter, because you're making it straightforward for them, because you're looking after them, and that makes them feel relaxed. And then they start to build up their relationship with digital skills, and they start to feel more confident. And also with grassroots organisations, you've got the potential for flexibility and creativity. So you don't have to be structured like a mainstream college. You don't have to have people there at 9 o'clock and then they go again at 10 o'clock. You know, they can come in, they can drop into your centre, you can put in drop-in sessions, you could even embed it. So you could go into a crafts group, for example, and you could use YouTube to show them how to make something using a YouTube video. They could then watch that video, and then, you know, people can take turns, like pause things, watch things again, look for different things. You can be creative in that way. We found with ESOL lessons that actually getting learners to email homework or email if they can't attend class, just getting them into the habit of using technology helps to sort of build up that confidence. And it's not just a short-term intervention. You can sort of move on with things. You can, from that initial engagement and that initial help, you can then help them progress. We had a guy from Ethiopia and he'd never used a computer before. He was very confident on his phone, but he really, really wanted to go to university, and he's thankfully he's got into university now, but he actually came to us and he was like, I need to know how to use a keyboard. I've never typed in my life. And he's going to go to university and he wants to be able to write essays. So he actually did learn my way, I think, from beginning to end twice. And he's very, very happy. And he would just come in for several sort of days a week, just practicing typing. And he's now progressed on to university, and that was just starting with like this dream of going to university, but then how do I do that? And we gave him those skills to be able to do that. And there's a lovely quote in the corner. It says, my tutor has been supportive and understanding. It's taken me a long time at my pace, but I felt encouraged every step of the way. Having internet and tablet has helped and changed life for me. And as community organisations, you can do that as well. Do you want to go on to the next slide?
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. Whilst we have had that community support is incredibly important, we also need to recognise that organisations that provide this support are facing a lot of challenges themselves at the moment. So Hayley's going to talk through to some of the ways in which community organisations are feeling the pinch at the moment.
Yeah, I think everybody's felt quite a hit with the cost of living crisis. Electricity bills skyrocketed, and I imagine now people are quite anxious about winter coming up and the fact that you're going to have to turn your heating on. And we found that it was a big challenge. So what we've had to do actually is we're now open 4 days a week rather than 5 days a week, and that's helped reduce our costs a bit. And we were fortunate to get some COVID recovery money, which we then used to install sort of infrared heating rather than having sort of heating on the wall. And that's helped a lot with our sort of running costs and things. But I think people are having to be sort of savvy in that respect. You've got to work it out. We noticed even that paper has gone up, because paper before was, you know, relatively cheap, and then suddenly it's gone up and now it's coming down again. But it's just things like that that you don't realise as you're sort of doing stuff with this cost of living crisis. Like the people are saying in supermarkets, the cost of a carrot would go up, and it's like, why is this happening? But it was happening with sort of practical things like paper, you know, electricity, phone costs, etc. But this sort of impacts not just this hub and the centre, but it also impacts your volunteers and your learners. So you will get volunteers maybe that are really, really wanting to help, but they're struggling as well. And you've got learners who are also struggling, but actually getting people online and letting them use your Wi-Fi, your sort of charging points to charge their phones even, things like that is really helpful for them. And there is less funding available for community support because that's how life is at the moment. But, you know, with the help of volunteers, with different communities, you can get quite a lot done. And the increase in demand for services, I'm sure, has increased for everybody across the country, and especially since the pandemic, because during the pandemic, everything sort of closed for a while. But I think now it's actually, well, we're seeing an increase. A lot more people now are confident, people want to go out, people want to do stuff. But you've got to sort of be mindful that, you know, things are happening. And cuts to local council, you look at Birmingham, you know, it's a problem really. But hopefully we'll all sort of stick in there and keep going, because people in community organisations and volunteers really want to help people, and that's why we do it. We do it because we want to help people, and where there's a will, there's a way, and you just got to keep going really.
Thanks, Hayley. I do really love that positive attitude. But I'd like to draw attention to the NCVO report recently that highlighted just some of the challenges that many charities across the sector are experiencing with increasing costs and in responding to the demand. And we know that it has been increasingly difficult for these organisations to close, and there have been many charities closing as a result of the current crisis. We've also seen a huge demand a huge increase in demand for services, and that same report quotes a 71% increase, or 71% of organisations reported an increase in demand. And And in our own network survey, 46% of respondents reported that they had just between 12 and 12 months funding to cover their current digital inclusion support. So it's not just about having the amount of funding that's available, but also how long that funding will last. And we know that many funding opportunities provide quite a short-term opportunity for organisations to access funding. We've also got another quote from one of the hubs in our network, just showing that increase of demand, saying that the drop-in sessions that we've done have become kind of unmanageable, really. We've been inundated with people, and people come along and they will wait for hours. This is something that we're seeing across many organisations in our network. And people, although Hayley has done an amazing job at recruiting lots of volunteers at Learn for Life, we know that people are finding it more difficult to volunteer as digital champions or other types of roles with organisations, because they need to, people that might have volunteered are now finding that they need to work, or they can't afford the travel costs or other things involved with volunteering too. So finally, we want to bring us on to talking about the National Digital Inclusion Network, what it is and how we support organisations that deliver digital inclusion support. We see the network as a movement with a shared vision, and it is a free membership network for any organisation that supports people to access the internet or to learn digital skills. We have currently around 3,500 members around the UK, growing really, really quickly. So we've seen a massive increase of 1,200 new members since April 2022. But we're ambitious, and our target is to reach 5,000 organisations by the end of 2025. We're really interested in reaching organisations in some of our priority areas, in particular areas where there are high levels of digital exclusion, but low numbers of hubs in that area already providing support. We wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of organisations in our network. So Hayley.
Yeah, so we've got Ignite IT, who are actually based in Northern Ireland, and they do digital skills training in a van, and you saw a picture of them before. So they're able to kit out their van due to funding from Good Things Foundation, which is amazing. Then in Wales, we've got Swansea MAD, and Swansea are a creative organisation, and they support people of all ages with digital skills and data.
We also have Deaf Action up in Edinburgh. They are a brilliant organisation that support deaf and hard of hearing people with a range of things, but one of their focus areas is helping them to learn digital skills. Up in down in Manchester, rather, we have Believe Achieve, an innovative organisation. They provide support to young people and their families to access mobile data and to learn to manage their finances. I'll just say here that at Good Things Foundation, we do support people that are over the age of 18. But some of what the organisations in our network might support people of a range of ages, but the support from Foundation focuses on that support from people aged 18 and above. And down in Bournemouth, we have Crumbs, and this is a really different type of organisation supporting people with learning disabilities to learn digital and other skills for work, and they provide really great work experience opportunities for people, and usually in the services industry. And they are fantastic. I really suggest you look them up and see what they're doing. So as you can see, we've got all different types of organisations supporting all different types of people around the UK to access digital connectivity devices and to learn digital skills. So why is our network so important? I'm going to hand over to Hayley to talk about some of the benefits of being part of our network.
Yeah, so like I said before, we've been a member of the network for 13 years now, and we've been involved in a lot of different projects, and those projects have actually helped us to grow as an organisation. We've been able to diversify, we've been able to try different things, and all those projects have really, really helped the people that we look after. So one of the great things about being part of the network is to be part of the National Data Bank, which means that you can access SIM cards to give to anybody who's on a low income household and over the age of 18 who needs internet data. So you can give them a SIM card which lasts for 6 months, and every month they get either 20 gigabytes of data or 40 gigabytes of data, depending on which SIM card you give them. And that's been a lifeline literally for everybody that we support. When the issue happened in Ukraine and the war started, we had a lot of Ukrainian people came to us, and that was like the first thing people wanted when they arrived in the city was a SIM card. And to be able to give them that was just, you know, you felt like you were doing your bit, really. Devices, we've applied to the device bank a few times now, and we have been able to distribute, especially in the pandemic, we distributed over 100 tablets to people who didn't have a device. And now we've recently had a donation of 22 devices, and they've been these really, really smart laptops, which we've been able to give to people who haven't had a device before. And those devices also come with internet data. So you can actually set somebody up on their journey to college, university, employment, and that's amazing. There's also funding opportunities in the network. So they do a digital capacity grant, and with that you can actually put in some funding applications to say what you want to do to help your organisation to do more digital things. So that's a really good thing to look at if you want to join the network, because funding is very scarce nowadays. There's also lots of resources and updates. So if you go on the Online Centres Network website, you can actually see past webinars and different training that's been there, and different sort of ideas on lesson plans. There's also training opportunities. So there's quite a lot of training that Good Things Foundation run themselves, and also ambassador training, which is done by people such as myself. And we sort of show people how to engage different types of communities, different ways to get volunteers, different ways to access funding, different ways to run a centre. So that can be really, really useful, especially if you're starting out, or even if you've been doing it for years, but you need to diversify a little bit. There's a lot of peer support, so you can contact different ambassadors. There's network ambassadors and Learn My Way ambassadors, and people from other organisations that have been members of the network for a while. They can give you support on a one-to-one basis, either by visiting you online or over the telephone, and that's really useful. The network's all about community and connecting to different organisations around the UK. And it's great because you're not competing then with like the organisation down the road. You're able to sort of network with people all over the country. You're part of something which can then apply for funding to get something to help people everywhere. You meet different people. You understand sort of more about sort of demographics of different cities, but it's also quite nice to sort of realise, okay, you know, this is happening in Sheffield, but actually it's also happening in Birmingham, it's happening in London. And before joining the network, you know, you're quite isolated in your city, in your community, but being part of this means that you can talk to other people, get support, get advice, find out what they did, what worked for them. And it's really great for learning, knowledge and problem solving. And the best bit is it's all free, so why not?
Thanks, Hayley. You can see there are a couple of questions about joining the network in the Q&A, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you visit the Online Centres Network website, as Hayley said, then it's really easy to join a network, and we're always happy to talk to you if you are interested in joining too. One of I just wanted to describe the picture that we have there. The picture that we have on the screen right now is a screenshot from one of our meetups, which are brilliant opportunities to connect with people from around the UK. We've got meetups on different themes and with different focuses. So the next one coming up will be a full network meetup on Thursday, so that's aimed at organisations in London that are working to fix the digital divide. We've got a specialist meetup for libraries that are working in digital inclusion next Thursday, and during Get Online Week we'll have a meetup for all organisations. One of the quotes I really loved that came from feedback from one of these meetups is someone just saying, "I'm not alone." And we know that many people that are working in digital inclusion, whether that's one organisation in an area that is really keen to support digital inclusion in their community, or working in an organisation that perhaps doesn't feel the support of their colleagues or doesn't feel like their organisation is prioritising digital inclusion, Meetups and our other training really allow you to feel connected to the community so that you can see how others are doing it and perhaps build up ways of helping to show why digital inclusion is so in your community too. And what is next for the National Digital Inclusion Network? So coming up very soon is Get Online Week. That is our annual campaign that is all about motivating people to get online, perhaps for the first time, or to try something new online. Running a campaign, it's our 6th year, and it's running from the 16th to the 22nd of October. There are lots of different ways of getting involved, but if you're a community organisation that supports people in any capacity to get online, or if you want to start helping people to get online, then you could run an event and register it with us so that we can promote your event on our Get Online Week. Great way for you to raise your profile in your local area and to highlight the importance of digital inclusion for the people that you support too. If you're not a community organisation but you want to support the campaign in other ways, please do get in touch and we can tell you how you can be a campaign ambassador, or just follow us on Twitter and you can help us to retweet all of our messages during Get Online Week when it comes up. So other things we've got that we're really excited about and that are coming up very soon. We'll soon be announcing a bit of a refreshed funding model for organisations in our network. So as Hayley said, one of the many member benefits of joining is that you can apply for funding. And we'll be announcing some new grants coming up in the next few weeks. Another thing that we are excited to be launching soon is a new network website. So this will be a new network website that will be easier for hubs to use, to access resources, guides, lesson plans, sign up to training, but also to connect with one another and to access our services and manage the things that we offer, like the data bank and our grants too. And finally, we're going to be exploring how we can provide more opportunities to connect with peers. As Hayley said, we've got so many opportunities and events coming up over the next few months. If you're already in our network, make sure that you're signed up to the newsletter and that you check our website to see what those events are that are coming up. And if you're not, please do get in touch and we'll be happily share any events that are coming up with you. But we're also looking at the ways that we can encourage peer-to-peer connection between hubs in our network too. And finally, I'll hand over to Hayley to think about how you can support and how you can get involved.
Yeah, so think of organisations in your area that can benefit from joining the network. That will help you to grow. And businesses as well. We're on the lookout for businesses to donate devices to the National Device Bank so that community organisations can then distribute them to people who need them. So it might be there's like a local office or a school or something like that. And what they do is there's another organisation that takes the devices, wipes them, updates them, and then distributes them to community organisations to give them out to people in need. You can also support Good Things Foundation by following them on Twitter and LinkedIn, and that will help them to raise awareness of the importance of community-based digital inclusion support.
Thanks, Hayley. I think we have lots of time for some questions if there are any, and I'll try turning my camera on again.
Yeah, so there's a couple in the Q&A functionality. So I can fire some off to you guys and let you guys answer. So we have a question from Karina Blake. Can you suggest some good ways to demonstrate the impact when working so holistically?
Yeah, so we find that when working holistically, it is harder to do the impact, but if you can take pictures, if you can do some case studies, if you can write a little bit about the session, then that's really helpful because you can then use those case studies when you're doing funding bids. You can put them on your social media website. You can show people what you're doing. You can even sort of engage with like your local newspapers, people like that to come down. If you're in a city with a university, We get quite a lot of students on placement with us, and you can get journalism students, marketing students, people like that will actually come to your organisation and they can write little things for you, which then you can use. And also it gives them the job of doing it and you don't have to. So
I'd really second that. I think that stories really are a great way of demonstrating impact, and they really appeal to the heart. I think there are lots of great ways of writing transformational stories, and there are some organisations that are providing free training. I think Get Grants currently have an introduction to storytelling to help with fundraising and to demonstrate impact too. But there are also some other frameworks that can help to connect digital inclusion to other aspects of exclusion that people might face, for example, tackling loneliness and support for older people. So I will try and dig some of those out, and perhaps we can send them to attendees after that too.
That sounds good. And if you have any links that you want to share with the audience after, just flick me an email and I'll pop it in the follow-up. So we have another question from Katie Lane Ryan, more specific. You mentioned a meetup for libraries working in digital inclusion. She can't find the event on Eventbrite. So do either of you guys have that to hand? And if so, could you pop it in the chat just so then all of the attendees have that?
Yeah, I'll pop that in the chat too.
Thank you. And then final question from Alex. Is the National Device Bank being funded for areas besides London?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we've had some London-focused rounds of devices through our partnership with Lottie, and with donations coming from London, but it is open to other areas. The way it works is that we open rounds of devices that organisations in our network can apply to. So when we have a certain number of devices to distribute, we'll open a round that will be open on our network website for organisations to make an application for. And it's, again, really important to be signed up to our newsletter so that you know when those opportunities are opening.
Brilliant. I know we've had a couple of questions in the Q&A, but I think Angela's been working away and answering those all as well. I guess I could ask a couple of them as in case any of the other audience are interested in those questions, because I think it's only the people that ask them that can see it. I'll just have a quick scroll through. So yeah, I think so. Paul Clayton's asked, given that funding is becoming harder to access, are there any CSR programs which could be of use to organisations?
Yeah, that is a really good point. I think there are a lot of companies that do have digital inclusion as one of their priority areas. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but we do again share any funding opportunities that we come across in our newsletter. We've also got a bit of training that is about diversifying your organisation's income coming up, that will be led by some of our ambassadors that support organisations with funding in particular. And one of those will be something that we'll cover in that training, will be how you can access that type of funding. And Hayley, you had experience of working with any businesses?
Yeah, it's harder to get businesses to do stuff. We've had donations from businesses sometimes, but you know, and you can get volunteer time from businesses, but it is something that we're also sort of looking into really. But I think the cost of living crisis has sort of like hit different people in different ways, but you do get companies, you know, like local supermarkets and people like that who've got their corporate responsibility, so they will do what they can, and you can get stuff for like Fair Share, and places like that will donate food and things. But I think in some cases with businesses it's more sort of practical things and physical objects rather than money that they can give.
Yeah, we did it. So we met with our group of ambassadors yesterday, and two of them mentioned Sky Up, through which they're accessing devices and other support from Sky. So definitely worth looking into that.
Amazing. We've had a couple more questions come through whilst jumping through the archive. So Chris has asked, so many websites are terribly designed. Are you interested in advising organisations such as National Rail to do better for, say, applying for a rail card?
It is a good point, and design is so important to helping people to access essential services like applying for a rail card and other things. It's not one of our priority focuses, but we would definitely be interested in advising on accessibility. We did actually recently, through our work Health and Wellbeing Alliance, release some tips for accessibility that is mainly focused on organisations in the health and wellbeing space, but those tips can be applied to really anyone that is developing a website. But it's not our area of expertise, and there are other people and organisations that are better placed to provide that advice.
Just to sort of follow on from that, as being part of the network, we've actually sort of had conversations with the NHS about how to develop their website to make it more user friendly. So when you're part of the network, you do get approached sometimes to do things like consultancy work for places like the NHS, and then they can sort of, well, they talk to our service users can practice using their website, then they can see what works, what doesn't, and that's really helpful. So maybe companies like National Rail may at some point get involved with good things and sort of say, have you got any organisations where we can try out our new rail card system, and you might be able to get a chance to do it.
That's a great point, and yeah, I think anyone that works within digital, user testing is key. You can't assume what the user needs or how they're going to use a service. So that's a really great opportunity that it could be a really good collaboration. One other question from Helen, again back to this library event, seems popular. Can you come to that event if you're not a library but you work with them with digital inclusion?
It is aimed at staff and volunteers at libraries. So I guess there's no barrier to signing up to the event, but you might find that it's not really the type of information that's best for your organisation, but you are welcome to sign up to it.
Excellent. And then one last question from Mark. So in Cornwall, we're struggling to proactively identify the people that need help, either not online at all or they're lacking in skills, and we rely on people coming to us / partners. Is there a tool or database to aid proactive support and advice and to provide stats?
I've not come across one. We've found a similar situation. It tends to be word of mouth. People come to you because maybe their social worker, their support worker, the food bank, a local charity might have referred them on. Even the job centre will say, we know there's some digital drop-in sessions going on in the Central Library, go down there. And that tends to be how it happens. I think it's difficult, especially nowadays, because a lot of sort of advertising like we do, other people do, you do it online, don't you? You do it on social media, you stick your poster online, you do that. But physical posters do sometimes still work. So we've still got some pictures, posters up in different places. And occasionally people say, oh, I saw this in the doctor's, or I saw this in the local library. And it's like, oh, well, it's, it's still working then. Because I know a lot of the time you will walk past posters and you don't look at them, but that can work. So doing that, but I don't know if there's any sort of system to do that. I don't know. Lou, have you come across one to reach out?
So there is some really great mapping. Sorry, there is some great mapping around. So there's the Derry mapping that highlights digital exclusion risk, so you can identify areas with a greater risk of people being digitally excluded. But I totally agree with what you say, Hayley. It is, and partnerships and referrals are so key to being able to reach people who need support. But unfortunately, that does mean that some people that aren't kind of engaged or being served by any services at all do go off under the radar. So just being as connected as you can be to others. I can see Angela's got a really great answer to this in the Q&A, but there are some really creative and innovative and human ways of reaching people that are so important, and whether that's going to places where people already are or connecting with existing WhatsApp groups and people who are really well connected in their community, whether that's at like a religious centre or through local schools too. Local schools can be a great way of reaching those people who do need, who are digitally excluded and need access to connectivity and devices in particular. But yeah, it is all about people and being in physical spaces, I think.
Yeah, I think even where we found a lot of our schemes that we're trying to help people with is about being where they already are, rather than trying to create a new system or a new network. to find them. It's kind of like you say, Hayley, it's libraries, it's food banks, it's, you know, the basic stuff like supermarkets. I know that there's a lot of things. Sainsbury's are really good for having community boards within their shops and things like that. So that might be a good way to get in touch. And Libraries Connected have a brilliant network. So and I know
even
that
schools, because
yeah, absolutely,
we've got parents going to schools. So
yeah, exactly.
And I guess also just important to say that the language you use to talk about the support is really important. So obviously we don't talk about digital when we're promoting digital support services. So what language can you use that will describe perhaps the benefits of being online and the benefits of the data bank, for example, in a way that's not going to scare people, that won't make people think, oh, it's too good to be true. How can someone be offering free mobile data without wanting anything in return? And how we talk about digital skills and access to the internet is a really important thing to think about too.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's it on the questions. We have plenty come through. So yeah, if are there any other call to actions that you guys want to finish on?
Just finally, yeah, it looks like there are a few people interested in accessing some of our services. So if you're interested in taking up the National Data Bank or applying for the National Device Bank or accessing any of our funding or Learn My Way, then please do join our network. I'll pop the link in the chat panel one more time, and please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions about the joining process.
Hayley, any call to actions from you?
if you want to get in touch at all, you can do. I'm sure Ellie will sort of send across like contact details, and that's fine. So if you want to sort of an organisation's point of view from being in the network rather than the network's view of being in the network, then feel free to get in touch.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for attending, everyone. The recording will be sent out to everyone who's registered, and I will put Hayley and Lou's contact details in there as well, should you want to get in touch directly. But yeah, for now, thank you so much for coming along, and have a great rest of your day.